going back to my ancestors, I feel like that's part of the legacy is values and values of family and how you raise your children and what their beliefs are.
As the crow flies on the Vance Crow podcast.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm glad you're here. Today I speak with Julie McDaniel, who is a mother and runs a cattle ranch out in the far extreme panhandle of Oklahoma. This is a desolate, dry, cold, hot place that is really harsh. But Julie has managed to build a family and a unit there that I admire from afar. She's married to my good friend Jared McDaniel, who runs the Ag Uncensored podcast, and we sat down to just have a conversation about what is it to be a mother in this modern age while you're living out in a place that her ancestors have passed down for generations, well over 100 years. So we have a fantastic conversation, and I'm really excited to get to that. Before we do, I want to give you just a heads up about some of the things going on with the Articulate Ventures Network. At the end of the month, the last Sunday of the month, we are doing a book club, and we are reading the book 1984 by George Orwell. There is still time for you to finish reading that book, even if you order it right now or you start checking out the audiobook. It is a wild read through the concepts of surveillance and people giving over their rights and freedoms and what happens when you push back on it. So we are going to have a book club at 7:30 on the last Sunday of the month. And if you'd like to join that, an easy way to do it is just to send me a DM in Twitter, or you can join the Articulate Ventures Network, where you can get the event listings, you can get invitations to it, and you can always stay on top of it. Another thing that you might be interested in that the network is getting into is over the next few weeks, we are having several virtual reality gatherings where we're going to be doing different experiments. We're just getting together. It's people that have the equipment, or even people that just have a desktop and they want to see what does it look like inside of a virtual world. So if you're interested in these types of exploration, not only of technology, but in ways to communicate with other people and how to interact in ways that we don't really have structures for, the way to do it, then I would recommend joining the Articulate Ventures Network. If you're a type of person that's interested in this stuff, you will love all the people that you'll meet, the classes that you'll get to take that'll teach you everything from how to have better conversations to how to upload videos to YouTube. We are having a great community that is building slowly over time. And if you're loving these interviews, you enjoy hearing people like Julie McDaniel talk about her things in a deeper way, then you will love the other people that have also found the Articulate Ventures Network. So I will include a link below and make sure you click on it. And if you enjoy it, I think you will find something very valuable for yourself there. So now on to the interview with Julie McDaniel. Julie McDaniel, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Vance. I'm excited to be here.
So you are a woman that has continued a family tradition of living in Oklahoma, ranching cattle. What is the story with your family? Why in the world are you out in the middle of the panhandle, or in a part of the world where nobody even knows exists?
Right. Well, my ancestors wanted something new and different and had an adventurous spirit and had the courage to come out into this area. I believe in 1890, it was either 1890 or 1894, before Oklahoma was a state, and try something new, be different, just try something that...
Do you have any idea what they were doing before this? Like, what would prompt somebody to go to this, like, what I view as, like, really harsh environment?
Well, they came from a really harsh environment. So I have descendants on both sides from Germany, Mexico, Ireland. They came from areas where they were being oppressed, and they wanted freedom to do their own thing and to at least just have the freedom to try to be successful and not be oppressed. So they came out and they had lots of hard work and dedication to make it work. So
just to set the scene, like, I know you through Twitter and you're married to a good friend of mine, but you have some element about who you are and what you do that I find to be something that's magnetic. And my wife is about to have our first child, and I know that you are a mother of many children. You're a part of a blended family. You've had children. Yes. And I see the way that you raise their kids. and I see it's something different. So I just kind of wanted to bring you on and talk about what is it to be a woman living on the high, dry plains of New Mexico, raising kids, and living out a life where you are essentially the descendants of like 5 generations of cattle ranchers in Oklahoma, and that's gone. If you weren't there, it just wouldn't exist as a part of the culture. So I have no idea where this will go, but I'm very interested in hearing about your views of being a woman and a mother and living out in the high plains.
Well, first of all, being a mother is hands down the most awesome, amazing experience of all time, period. And I feel very fortunate to be able to be a mother. I know a lot of people struggle to become a mother, and so I have a lot of sympathy in that area, but becoming a mother is amazing. I'll never forget whenever I had my first, when I saw him, man, something just clicked inside of me, and I knew that I was exactly where I was supposed to be, is being a mama.
How old were you?
I was 25. 25 was my first, and it just was, I can't explain it. I always say that he saved my life, and I mean that in a way that, so just to give you a little bit of a background, I was a major at computer information systems was my major, and I was getting my master's, an MBA, and, I was just very much so, I owned my own business. I, was very career driven, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not coming down on that at all. But whenever I had Alex, man, my priorities straightened up really quick. And I knew immediately that he was it. He was my life, and I just wanted to be around him and show him the world and show him his strength and help him discover the awesome, beautiful paths that you can take in life. And I wanted to do that. And so I cut down on my hours. I actually ended up selling my house because I didn't like being away from him. And so I sold my house and moved into a tiny little rent house, but I could afford it and only work 3 days a week. And it allowed me to be with him more. And,
were you married?
No, I was divorced. And,
wow.
And I want to be real clear that my ex-husband is a wonderful man. He's a very good man. We probably just should have never have gotten married. We were high school sweethearts, and we're just the best of friends, and we honestly still kind of are the best of friends. But I think we both just needed more from a marriage other than just friendship. And he's now married to a wonderful woman, but he and we split custody. So, it was really important to me that Alex have his father in his life, and he felt the same way about me. And so, anyway, so I was not married at the time, and I just decided to quit those things because I knew that he was my priority. What could possibly be more important than raising him to be a good man? There's nothing more important.
When I thought about doing this interview, I have to say that I've had more hesitation about bringing up the fact that I see you first and foremost as a mother, not because I think that's wrong, but because in our culture, there's definitely like a polarity around implying that women have to, or that that's something that they must do. But in other cultures, when I lived in Kenya, for example, a girl was just a girl until she became a mama. And once she became a mama, everyone referred to her as mama. It was a transcendent experience that put them within the fabric of the community. So when I was bringing it up with you, I was like, am I going to upset Julie? She's a smart woman. She's driven. She works hard. Is calling her a mother first going to be insulting?
Absolutely not. No, I wear that badge of honor. Absolutely.
Why do you think in culture it is that way? Why do I feel that way, do you think?
I don't know. And, I see that a lot too. It's almost like our culture has stopped putting worth on it, on being a stay-at-home mom. I've got that. Julie, why would you ever give up your own business? And it was a successful business, very successful. Why would you ever do that, to be at home, to just be a stay-at-home parent? The decision was incredibly simple to me because that's what I wanted to do. And so I would do it, and I would do what it took to make it work. And luckily I was raised by generations of people, men and women, to think for myself and not necessarily what society tells me is right and wrong. I feel like a lot of society, it's where they place value is your career. And I have lots of friends who went down that path, and I was going down that path also. And again, I'm not coming down on career-driven people at all. I'm really not, but there is a biological clock there. And I know so many of my friends have really struggled with that. When they finally decided, hey, I want to have kids, maybe there were some more difficulties that perhaps if they were younger, they wouldn't have had those. It's just,
I feel straight up lied to. And it was entirely on me. I had all of the data, all of the information, all of the cultural emphasis, but I feel like I was convinced by society that this clock was really not that important, and if you decided you wanted to be a parent, that was just kind of a part of things. But once we made the decision that this was like going to be a fundamental component of us being married and of us actually being human beings by having this child, then once we'd made that decision, now we had to walk over hot effing coals.
Yes.
And so to hear you describing this and having that knowledge early, I want to, without overstepping my bounds, tell other people that this is important.
Yeah, well, I do try to tell people that it's important, and I just try to encourage that. In my opinion, there is nothing more important. I don't care what you do for a living. There is nothing more important than our children and our future and their belief system. And raising them the way that you feel like they need to be raised. I had wonderful babysitters with Alex when I wasn't married, and they were sweet and wonderful, but they didn't necessarily share the same value system that I do. And that's nothing against them. We were friends, but they were spending more time with my kid than I was, and so he was picking up their value system rather than mine. And going back to my ancestors, I feel like that's part of the legacy, is values and values of family and how you raise your children and what their beliefs are. And that's, my grandparents and their parents, that was passed on generation upon generation upon generation of just your beliefs and the way that you see the world. And I wanted to pass that on. I don't want another person passing their belief system onto my child. That's my job.
Do you think that, so in the one context of being in an Oklahoma cattle ranch where you're kind of far away from the rest of the world,
right?
It seems like time would move at a slower pace, and that oftentimes in the city, people feel like, well, we had the values of our ancestors, but those don't really apply here and now and in this context.
Right.
What do you think? Do your values apply because you're living in a slower place, or are those people forgetting the values that their ancestors had?
I think they're forgetting them. I think you can look around in society and see how losing touch with where you came from, what those value systems are, what those belief systems are. I feel like that's part of why our society is breaking. And when you don't have that basic anchor in your life to go back to, and just to center you, I think it's really easy to get lost. And I feel like our society is lost in a lot of ways. There's good things that are coming in society, but I just feel like they really have have lost those general beliefs, and instead of going back to where their ancestors came from and what those belief systems are, they're looking at outside sources, and those people are lost too. So it's the blind leading the blind, and I feel incredibly fortunate to live on a ranch where the same values. Like when we are working cattle, for example, Jared and I try to talk about perhaps maybe the way that our ancestors worked cattle, or the way that they ran them or gathered them, or maybe some of the difficulties that they had to work around. And my kids get it. They can see it. They are doing the exact same thing. Now, there might be some different technology involved or something like that, but the basic core, the condition of the animal, the grass, are they eating enough? Is it okay? Is it nutritious? Our ancestors were doing the exact same thing. And I love that they have that basic connection, because they can always go back to it. Even if they choose to go off and live in a city, that's fine. But they will still always have that anchor and that general core that they were brought up on to fall back on.
Yeah, there's something about if you work in ag, you have to be more in tune with what is going on with nature. Like, for example, when I listen to the weather, it's like, am I going to wear sandals and shorts, or am I going to wear jeans? Not, does this have an impact on my life? Right. But with yours, it's not just the day-to-day weather that matters on and off. It's the overall seasons, and where are you heading into and where are you coming out of? Right. That seems to me to be like something you have to cover over in values, because otherwise, I don't know, there's something interesting about that, raising a kid in that environment.
Yeah, I think they appreciate life more. I think they see the how delicate it can be. And this, we talked about this the other day, but we were in a horrible drought, and we got some much needed rain, which was amazing, and praise God. I mean, it was awesome. But my son and I went and were checking the cattle, and we found a dead one. And then 4 hours later, we found another dead one. So what happened was that amazing rain, beautiful rain, which we're still very grateful for, had sprouted some seeds and had a toxic plant was growing somewhere in this field and in this pasture. And so we immediately called our kids, especially our older kids, and explained the situation. And we gathered them and moved them that day. And we just had to do it. And it was a very long, very trying day.
Explain to people that don't have cattle, when you're saying we went out and moved them, it's not like you went out and moved a bunch of puppies. No. Or you went out and moved a bunch of animals that are like, we're going to do whatever you say. You're talking about 1,000-pound beasts that if they decide to harm you or your children, they can do it.
Absolutely. They absolutely can do it. And you have to show strength. You cannot, I'm not saying be mean, but you have to show strength that you will not overpower me. You do not scare me. And I think that my kids seeing me in that situation gives them strength. Like, well, gosh, if mom can do that, I can do this. And I like to present myself in strong situations. I try very hard to show my kids strength and to help them to discover their strength. So when we are moving these 1,000-pound animals, this is going to sound funny, but I played college basketball. So I tell my kids, get in your defensive stance, make yourself as big as humanly possible, get those arms out wide, show this animal that you are a force to be reckoned with. And so, we had to do it. And at the very end, we had a group that would not leave. This was 460 animals. They're going on 2 years old. And so they're it's like a big group of teenagers that you're trying to gather up. Yeah. And they don't want to lose. They don't want to move or leave, because it's this beautiful, lush green pasture, and they're loving life. They don't want to leave there. And so, anyway, we just had to force the issue. So I had to at the very end, Jared, he's like, I wish I would have had my camera. But this group, probably about 15, they were not going to do it. And so I just grabbed a scraper, kind of like a shovel, just a scraper off the back of the pickup. And I just, went over there and I showed them that they were going to move. And, and Jared said, gosh, I wish I would have recorded that. He said those animals had seen that you had had enough and they just went in. And so I think that there is a time and a place to show force. I didn't have to hit them or anything like that. I wasn't like abusing them in any way, but it's just showing dominance that no, you will do this and you're moving today and you're going to do it now for their own good, So anyway, but it was fun. It was a great experience.
I often talk about like the cultural divide that occurs between the city and the countryside, and that, right. And that, like, in some respects, you're talking about entirely different cultures as though they were in different countries because of the expectations of what you are responsible for if you're living out on the plains versus if you're living in the city, you have to have so much more cooperation, right? So there's this weird dichotomy that seems like an imbalance. But one of the things that strikes me about it is like the values that you were talking about. It's not like you sat down and you're like, hey, this is this book of a list of like 150 values that we're going to pass on. The values that you're passing on are, this is what you need to know in order that you survive at all, let alone thrive in this environment.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of our values that we do, like you said, is for basic survival. If you were confronted by an animal that is threatening you, this is what you do. We have tons of rattlesnakes around here. That's very common. Learning how to deal with them, what you do, the proper way to act. I keep a flathead shovel by my front door, and I kill snakes all the time. And that's just what you do. And I love the fact that my kids know that, I don't call Jared to come home and kill something. I don't. I am completely capable of doing that on my own. I have a little 410 shotgun that I take care of things with. And sometimes we have strange people pull up to our house, and the thing is that our house is kind of hard to find. And so if someone is there and they didn't call before, that's, they're lost or, maybe don't have the best intentions. And so I've greeted people with a shotgun before, and I'm not being rude. I'm just letting them know, hey, I don't mess around. So what do you need? And we can move forward from here. Well, that
sounds exactly like the cattle thing that you were describing, right? Like if you put on a face of being a slight little flower, they're going to come over, they're just going to go do whatever they want. And you don't want to find out after the fact that they were testing you. You want to know, you want them to know right away that you passed the test, whether they're testing you or not.
Yeah, right. I don't suffer fools. So, state your business. What do you need? And not that it's rudeness, but I'm not here to play. So same way with cattle, people.
You were talking about showing your children like, hey, we want to talk about the dead cows, or we have to kill a rattlesnake.
Right.
There's something that seems like an opposing force with a mother that's talking about the first time I held my baby in my hands, it clicked and it changed my life.
Yes.
With the making children confront the reality that life is not forever, right? That's like a loss of innocence in a way. How have you balanced that? How have you thought about exposing your kids to these rough elements?
I think you're doing a disservice if you don't. It's life. It's reality. I would rather them experience those things with me so I can help guide them through them than when they maybe go off to college or, their first job or whatever, whenever they move away and they have these questions and they're hard questions, but, maybe turning to a friend or someone else going back to someone who, if they don't have that basic anchor in their life, that one thing to bring them back, to center them. I feel like that's my job as a mom, is to help them through that and to show them death. I was never shielded from death as a child. I remember watching several people that I loved pass away and being in the room when they did.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never seen that. I've only seen violent deaths. I've never seen a passing death.
Okay, yeah. So I watched my grandfather die. He had smoked his entire life, and that was the first time I had actually watched somebody die. He was an amazing man. They came from Ireland and completely self-made man. He went on a first cattle drive. Him and I think his 11-year-old brother moved cattle like several miles, and his dad just sent him off. And I think he was 9 and maybe his brother was 10 or 11, and they were moving like 200 head of cattle, just crazy things. But he lived his life. He did it his own way. And, he rolled his own cigarettes, and I helped. I won't forget, like, he would be rolling them, and he would, he showed me how to do it and all of that. And he ended up dying of lung cancer. I know, but he lived his life his way.
On some level, that was like the color that makes him who he is, right? If you take every blanket you have and you say, I don't want any stains in these blankets, then you take away all the incidences around
all
them.
The cool character from it. And so, I just was never shielded from it. And I also wasn't taught that it was a bad thing. I mean, honestly, when you watch animals suffer, you learn really quick there are a lot worse fates than death. And it's brutal. And sometimes that's the mercy, is death. And so I wasn't really taught to fear death. And I don't fear death. If I die, okay, that's my time. I grew up, several of my friends have passed away. Like I said, I've been around a lot of people who have died. And so it's just not something I'm very comfortable with it. It's going to happen. I want to give that comfort to my children. It is what it is. And it's not something to necessarily fear, but while you are on this earth, you better live it up and make your mark. And even if that mark means passing good values, like, to me, that's my mark, is I'm passing my values, and those good values, what I consider to be good values of, hard work ethic, treating people with love and respect, not tolerating BS, not suffering fools, showing your strength, but in a respectful way. That's my legacy, and I feel comfortable with it, with that being my mark. It makes me proud that I'm doing that.
When you think about your mark, I really like that term. I probably start using that more, because it's something more powerful than just your signature. It's your signature that transcends. It lasts into the future, even when you're gone, even when the buildings you put up are gone, or that's really interesting.
Yeah, so I've always felt like that is legacy. That was a legacy that was passed to me, is your value system. And I don't know. Maybe that's why death doesn't freak me out, is I know that I'm passing those on, and I know that my children will pass those on. And I know that it's just something that has continued through generation upon generation upon generation. And we're going to stick with it, and we're going to keep with it. And that makes me happy. It makes my heart happy to know that.
It strikes me that leaving your mark is actually like art. Everyone's art. That it's like, it may not have meaning other than the meaning that you can see in it, the meaning that that it shares with other people, that it impacts out in the world. I've never thought about that. I mean, the reason I say that is because you're talking about your values living on through your children, and at this point, even if you were to pass away, those will live on, and they will pass on to their children. And it's a humility that I think we don't get in the city, but I don't think it's because people are falsely modest or falsely humble. It's that they don't actually understand. It's harder to understand your place in the universe when you're a part of a city. Right.
I personally don't like cities. I'm not coming down on anyone from a city, but man, I think I don't think people are meant to live in a concrete jungle. I think it messes with them. And just needing that connection to the earth and with nature, I feel like you learn about life from it, and the way that there is a circle to life, and that's okay, and it's good, and there's nothing wrong with it. Like when I die, I don't want to be embalmed or anything like that. I'm completely fine with being fertilizer for our land, and that in some way that brings me a lot of comfort to know that through me, other things will be given life. And maybe in the same way with my children, through me, they have a value system that will hopefully keep them anchored their entire life. And then they can pass that on and pass it on. And like you said, like that's my mark. That's an art to shape and mold a soul to see life in a certain way and not become bitter.
Yeah, people don't really have that perception that you can talk about the soul, and that I do think that leads to people, because when you don't accept that there is some voice inside of you that is both wrapped into who you are but also somehow distinct, when you deny that thing, then you don't really have a soul. It is separated from the body, and what you're trying to do is only in the physical world. It is only in your awards and your accolades and your what is going on right now. But when you understand the connection that you have a voice that is telling you to go somewhere to manifest something in the world, you feel connected.
Absolutely. And you also feel that, like I said, that when I saw my son for the first time, man, that voice was strong. And selling my house and giving up my job, or just getting rid of my job, all those things passed away really quickly. They held little to no importance. Yes, I needed money, but I just needed enough to provide for my son and I didn't need all that stuff, and I can't carry it with me, but the values that I place in him, that's where it's at. That's the importance.
Do you have a name for that voice? I mean, that voice that we're talking about, that both of us know, is it something you have a communion with, that you can talk with whenever you want? Or is it something that only happens in these very intense moments?
I feel like, my soul or my spirit. And then of course I have Christian values. So of course, God, and also I'm going to get kind of, some people might think this is weird, but I do feel like there is something guiding me, in either ancestors or, a spirit, something that helps guide your way in life. There's something very spiritual about it, and listening to that voice and denying it, I don't know, it almost makes you, what's the proper word for it? It's like there's a void inside of you if you denied it. And it's almost like you're not living a whole life and understanding the whole picture of life. But yeah, just your soul, spirit, I think just having that connection to it is very, very, very important.
You mentioned the circle of life and then the whole life, and it's funny. So when my wife and I decided we were going to get pregnant, we had a long road to get down to be able to make it happen. But the whole time, I just kind of had okay, well, I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to keep going. I wasn't really thinking about what I was doing, or that there was a human life at stake, or it wasn't really like that when we were in the middle of it. But the day that she called me to say she went to the doctors and the pregnancy had gone on long enough that she knew what the gender was, she then says, it's a little girl.
Oh.
And to me, that was like, I had this image of like a blob that was our child, right? But it wasn't like anything I could relate to. Right. But when you all of a sudden defined it has feminine energy as opposed to masculine energy, it would be a girl as opposed to a boy. Now all of a sudden it's realness snapped into place. And I had a picture in my mind of a symbol I had maybe only seen once in my life, but it suddenly, and it was the snake eating its tail, the Ouroboros, the beginning and the end, the alpha. Right. And I'm saying this and you immediately agree, right? Like that was one of those things that I didn't expect, that when we knew the child was coming, it came into existence, and so much about the world that was right in front of me became unveiled. So as you're
Yes.
talking about these experiences, I relate to it, but like almost from behind a screen. Like I haven't gotten
Right.
there yet, but you make me very
Oh,
excited about it.
yeah, just wait until you meet her. It's going to be amazing. You will love it.
What should
Oh,
somebody that has been like me, has been a masculine guy hanging out with a
mhm.
lot of guys? I love women, but what should I know about raising a woman?
I think, well, you should know that my dad, he raised me and honestly all of us kids to be strong, and my mom too. Like I said, we've generation upon a generation of very, very strong people and incredible willpower. I think, raising a woman, I think showing her strength. It's almost, I think sometimes there's a stereotype that men, get to be like masculine, strong, and, all of that. And maybe there's a stereotype that women shouldn't be that. And so I think perhaps that's why society rejects it and almost goes overboard the other way, where a woman has to, it's where you come across women who are, it's almost like they are a rebellious teenager towards those feminist ideas. I think just teaching a woman or your daughter to have those soft touches, but man, love is strength. And I think women in particular have a real ability to love and a natural ability to love. And so much strength can come from that. And that is in no way a weakness at all. And
Tell me more about that. You're saying something to me that I understand on like a literature level, but I don't think I really get what you're saying.
right. The idea of loving someone. So, for example, and I'm going to reference my son because, again, I feel like he saved me in so many ways. Just that unconditional love that will never end, ever, no matter what. And that takes incredible strength. Incredible strength. Whenever you are confronted with something that you don't like, it's so easy to say, I'm done with this. I don't want to mess with this. But I think learning to love through that, even if you're super angry at the person or wanting to reject them, just having that deep-seated love that is never ending, and it drives you. So your actions come from a place of love. That is your motivation. And I feel like whenever you start to adopt that way of life, it changes your entire outlook. Whenever you say, okay, love is my motivator, not necessarily revenge, or not that revenge is a good motivator, although some people it does motivate. Not revenge or power or money or fame. My motivator is love. So what do you do with that? It changes everything. It changes the way you see the world. It changes the way you conduct yourself and your business, and the way you raise your children. Just changes everything. So my son showed me that.
You have a marriage with a very good friend of mine, so I have like a weird view into it. But one of the things that I've observed about you that really resonates with me is that you are a worthy adversary for your husband. And I don't mean that in terms of like you get to get him, but like you are every bit as strong in the ways that he is not. And I don't know how to describe that, but maybe you can describe it better. Like,
well, I think showing love, going back to that loving spirit, is it's challenging people, calling them out when they need to be called out. Is loving someone enabling them to do something that is harmful to them or hurts them in some way? I don't think so. So, or maybe allowing someone to talk a certain way, or go present something in a way that you don't agree with, but maybe just in silent on just for the sake of getting along. I personally don't think that helps that person grow to be better. And I was raised that way too. So I do challenge him. My mom challenges my dad all the time. My grandmother challenged my grandfather. I think I'm surrounded by women that do challenge, but do it in a respectful way, not in a mean way, but in a way like, hey, maybe you should rethink that, or here's a different perspective. And I think that Jared loves and respects that. I think that's a good thing. And if he didn't, then he wouldn't have married me, because that's the way that it was from the very beginning.
Yeah, I think maybe that's another weird thing. So the other day, last night, I saw this weird graph that showed how people were introduced to one another. So like, where did couples meet? And It used to be, a blind date. Did your parents set it up? Did you meet at work? Did you meet at a club that you go to? And so you have these lines, and they start declining over time, that's not how people meet, that instead it's now people met online, and that line went way up, that's how many people did it. And you find that that makes me have this weird sensation, because the algorithms are choosing how you're paired up. And maybe it's a good thing, but one of the things that can be overlooked, if you can find somebody that you like or connect with because you have the same interests, that's one thing. Yeah. But it's a whole nother thing to find a person that is your opposite and like the equal opposite force that can somebody that you can hustle with.
So I'm a perfect example of that. Like I said, I'm divorced, so I married my best friend. I mean, I did that. And he and I are still, sorry, Vance, we have a train.
I love it. Of course there's a train. Keep going. There's no problem.
But he was my best friend. We still are incredible friends. There is nothing wrong with being amazing friends with someone. But man, I don't think your marriage should be based on that. Just my personal experience. I did not, it was, and his name's Joe. I love Joe. He is an amazing guy, but man, he deserved more. And I deserved more too. We both deserved more from it. And, having someone who challenges you, who inspires you, who brings that passion up in you, something that just, it's like a fresh breath of air, just someone, you need someone who does that for you. And Joe is a great guy, and I think he would say the same about me, but it wasn't necessarily that way. He was very comforting and a wonderful friend, but like you said, the algorithms pairing people up, I think they would have paired Joe and I up repeatedly. And that doesn't always mean that that's the way that's going to work out well. I need someone who challenges me. And as you know, Jared, he does that.
He challenges everybody. But I like the tension is what creates, like, the symbol of the yin and the yang sign has a lot of meaning to me. And I'm sure there are other ways that you could construct it. But the way that my own life has churned is because my wife will not let me stand still. And it's not in terms of she wants me to go make more money or have a better house. Like, none of that. It's like she sees something in me, and if I'm not living up to it, she can't fake the fact that she doesn't see it. And so you're like, oh no, I've got to get better.
Yes.
And your best friend will help you on that path, but never like the full tension of a partner.
Absolutely not. No, because that best friend, to me, it's a comforting thing, but maybe doesn't just push you and push you and push you. Jared definitely pushes me, and I push him to think differently or to maybe consider things in a different way. But if it's coming from a place of love, and I do have to remind Jared of that sometimes, that this is coming from a place of love. But I think women in particular, so this is something else, you will have a daughter. I think women have the unique ability to really see the potential in a man. I really do, especially like a man that she loves. It's like you can see right past so many things and so many insecurities that they have, and it's almost like you filter all of that like insecurity, BS, like immaturity maybe, and women, they see straight through it. And
you are describing actually my why. It's a weird thing to say, but it's when I think of having a daughter, right, that I had this like transcendent, the angels have come out, the Ouroboros has been split in half, and you can see the male and feminine energy. Yes. Great experience. And then all of a sudden I came down from it and been like, but Vance, if there's karma in the world, you have a huge debt that you're going to have to repay, because there were a lot of girls that I met along the way that they didn't see through my bullshit. Right. And I would date him and it would not be a serious thing for me. And I didn't have an understanding that there's a soul there and a person trying to give you something that matters to them. How, like, I feel like my job from day one is like, I have got to show you how to see through the bullshit of somebody like me. Right. Am I destined to like have to repay this karma? Is this the way the world works?
I don't think so. Man, yeah, give her those skills. That's great. I feel very fortunate that my parents taught me that, to just cut through that stuff. And I think that'll be a wonderful skill that you pass on to her.
And if you don't, then you have to be the one that watches your own daughter get hurt by some asshole like you.
Yes. Yeah. I think I put this on Twitter, but Jared and I, we knew each other in high school, and we were friends. It wasn't that we weren't friends, but man, I thought he was kind of a jerk, and, just kind of the way he treated women. I wasn't really down with all of that. And so when he asked me on a date, I told him no several times. I don't want anything to do with you, and my mom was actually the one that said, Julie, people change. Again, coming from a place of love, people change, second chances are important in life. And I've been given second chances too. And so to deny someone else the chance to present themselves differently, is an injustice in some way. So I did give him a second chance. But on that date, we sat at least 15, 20 feet apart the entire time. And I basically just grilled him the whole night. It was like a test, I think, in many ways, but I just didn't want to put up with, I didn't have time for that. I had a kid and I didn't have time for a bunch of nonsense and just someone who wanted to act like an idiot. I didn't have any interest in that. And so, that first date, I pretty much grilled him for 5-6 hours and he passed the test, and then we moved forward. So
have any of your kids started dating yet?
Yes, they have. So my daughter, our oldest daughter, has a boyfriend who is very nice. She also does not suffer fools well. So, she had previously dated a guy that, just kind of brought some drama into her life. And I think she realized, that's not the way that I want to go from now on. And so she recognized that. And so she's with a guy who, very stable, very much so, has his head on straight, and she just doesn't suffer fools. She just doesn't, which makes me proud.
The two brothers that Jared and I know, the Ring brothers, are young guys, and they got married in their early 20s. Right. And as you're a mom, what do you think in this modern age? Is it okay? Do you know yourself well enough? Can you find a partner in your early 20s? Do you want that for your children, or is that like ripe for decision, mistakes?
Well, I think everyone has to choose their own path in life. I think that's important. So if my child chose to do that, so I got married at 19 to Joe. Yeah. So I was very young, and again, he was my best friend. I felt very confident that I would love him forever, and I do love him. It's not that I don't. He's an amazing man. He's just not who I should be married to. But I did get married at 19. And so I felt like I would feel like if my children chose to do that, I would encourage them to hold off. I think there's a lot of maturing and changing that goes on, especially when you first, go through college and get your first job and dealing things with know, like real life, like a mortgage and paying for health insurance and, just learning those things. And everybody navigates that differently. And I think the mistake that I made in my first marriage was Joe did not like taking care of that stuff. And so as his friend, I thought, well, I'll just take care of it because he doesn't want to take care of it. And then I think slowly I began to resent that. And I felt like I should have a partner rather than someone that I just took care of, and it wasn't his fault. It wasn't, I completely put it upon myself to do it, but I wanted to be nice because he was my friend. I wanted to help out my friend and my husband at the time. So I don't know, I would caution against that. I don't make that same mistake with Jared now. If he doesn't want to do something, a lot of times we'll do it together because the job sucks and it's horrible and neither of us like it. But I don't think that's necessarily a positive thing to just constantly say, I'll take it on, because eventually you'll get tired of it and you'll get burned out. So I don't know, it took me a few more years to come to terms with that. But maybe some people, when they're 19, they already understand those things. I tend to learn lessons the hard way.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think the Ring brothers, when I think about like their work ethic and partnership and all of the things that they know, I had no idea about these things. When I was in my 20s, it was like, hey, we're going to do it my way or I'm just going to bolt. Oh, and if you don't like it, I'm just going to bolt.
Yeah.
And like, that's not a partnership, right? That's a one-sided deal.
That is a one-sided deal. And so, yeah, I think everyone just choosing their own path in life. And I try to put that into my kids too. And even Jared, I think we try to encourage each other that way too, is to discover new interesting things and know that we are always behind each other 100%, even if it's not something that I particularly understand and interest that they want to pursue. They know at the end of the day, I've got their back and I know that they have my back. And it's just this awesome network and family that no matter what, you have got this rock behind you that even when you don't believe in yourself or you are having doubts, that you can lean upon this rock and that you have their support and love. Even if I don't necessarily agree with it all the time, I'm not going to reject them and they won't reject me.
So speaking of things that you don't agree with, like right now, as you look out in the world, what is something that you believe that you think the rest of the world doesn't see eye to eye with you on, that you think like we're somehow off kilter here?
I think the value of family and children. I think I strongly disagree with abortion. And I cannot wrap my head around it. I just can't. I know that there are times that there are medical issues involved, and I have more sympathy there. But I think I just place such value in children, all children, that just the idea of not allowing them to make their mark on the world is just a huge disservice. And I think that it destroys people's soul a little bit. It almost like it creates this void. Taking that from someone is just it's huge. It's huge.
When I was younger, I fortunately was never in this position, but I don't know that I would have had the foresight or the understanding. I mean, I was so disconnected from the voice that I talk about being wrapped inside of me that I would have said, if there's some voice that told me not to do it, it's because it's the old antiquated way of looking at it. And I wouldn't have realized whether it's right or wrong in the fabric of society. I would never have known that I was giving away a piece of my soul. And I think that that's one of the challenges is you have people that are in a really tough spot and they don't know what to do. And it wasn't until I was nearly 40 years old that I realized how much I wanted a child. And so there's something there that I feel like our society, it's probably exactly what you started off by saying, like this information can only be passed on to you by your ancestors, because society's answer is going to be something different than the tradition of old, of that we've learned over time.
And society's answer is constantly also changing. And so, the right answer may have been something, different 20 years ago than it is today. And so there is no legacy to pass on. It is constantly changing with the way that people view the world, or it's constantly evolving, and not always in a good way. So I don't know. I think people sell a little piece of their soul off in a lot of ways, maybe making compromises with things that they don't believe in. And I recognize that I am incredibly blessed to be able to even say that. I know a lot of people, maybe with the job that they have or just the circumstances that they're in, don't feel free to speak their mind. And luckily, I have always spoke my mind, and I've had the freedom to do so. And I'm not going to do it. I feel like if I ever stopped doing that, I would lose a piece of myself, and I'm not willing to do that. And so, but I'm willing to forgo, maybe having a big career, or, just different things. I'm willing to sacrifice those things to keep my compass, to keep me going in the direction that I feel like I need to be going.
Well, I can tell you with 100% certainty that I would not be sitting in this chair had I not spoken with your husband. And he basically told me, if your goal is to be able to be free to speak to other people, then you can't be paid by one corporation for your opinion, because they are rightly in charge of what you say publicly. And so if you don't want them to be in charge of it, you have to give up the money. And I remember where I was walking, I'll never forget it, because that was when I was confronted with a reality that I always knew, but wasn't willing to face. And he made me face it. And I think that that's the thing that allows people to get to the place where their voice tells them they need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And then having the courage to follow that voice, and having a partner to encourage to follow that voice too. I know people who have that voice, and maybe their spouse is a little more apprehensive about it, just having the courage, and rightfully so. I'm not even coming down on the spouse about that, but, just having the courage and the faith to move forward and to do it, to follow it. And to me, you will never regret it. Never. It's an amazing thing to be able to be free, and to be not allow someone to have their thumb on you. I've never liked that. I'd never want to be in that position to where someone has control over me. I think I'd rather die, honestly.
I think those are powerful words, and I believe you in that. When you think about home, right? One of the challenges. So the other day I was talking with some people I'm really close with, and I was pointing out that if things start to get really bad in the cities, it might be a good idea to leave, right? Okay. But it was pointed out to me by my mentor, that's only true if the place you're leaving isn't your home. Right. If it's your home, then leaving it is something you should take very, very seriously. It's not to say you should never leave your home, but that you stay and you fight for your home, and you get involved before the battle becomes physical. When you think about home, what is that for you? What do you want your children to feel and to know about the home that you and Jared are creating?
Well, when I think about home, I think about no man's land. Where we live, it's a bit desolate, and maybe isn't for everyone, but
you're being very modest there. When you say desolate, it's Jared sends videos. You can look in all directions and see nothing but horizon in every direction, and it's dry, dusty, hot, fields or cold for that matter. Sometimes.
Yeah. But I love that. Like, it speaks to me. It really does. And I find a lot of beauty in it. I know that that's strange, but I feel very much so a real connection to this area. The harshness of it, I love it. I think it's amazing. I think it creates strong people. You have to be strong to be here, and you have to find your strength, and you have to find that strength from a young age. And I think that's one of the most important things that a parent can show their child is where their strength is. And so this area, it's really easy to do that in because it is harsh. And so I think it molds and shapes amazing people and creative people, because you learn to see beauty in things like a desolate, windblown area, but being able to see for miles, man, it just speaks to my heart, and it brings me a very real sense of peace to see those things. And I would absolutely fight for this area, and no one else probably even likes it, and that's okay. It's my little corner. But I also recognize that, just like my ancestors that had to leave, Ireland and Germany and Mexico, and to go off and search for something else, again, your home you carry with you. Even though I have a real connection to this earth and the land and this area, if we move somewhere else, I would still carry those things with me. And the things that No Man's Land has taught me, I would carry that. It would very much so be a place in my heart and would be forever. And I would try to pass that along to my children, and hopefully their children's children. My ancestors, they brought hardships and things that they learned from, their countries and the things that they were escaping. They brought those with them in those value systems. And so, home, you carry it with you, the legacy of how you view the world.
As I'm hearing you say that, I come to recognize why I really wanted to talk with you. It was definitely the voice telling me that you're a form of the godmother that I would want my child to have. So this has been a wonderful recording, because I think that it's too easy to not hold home that valuable. I think that it's easy to say, like, it's not that big of a deal, or things change, or whatever. And I think that gives up something that's fundamental, that's core to, we are a family, and we want to carry on this tradition and the legacy and the beliefs that we have. That to me is something deeply important and very, very rare, I think, in today's society. So I'm really glad you were willing to come on and share all this with me.
Yeah, I wish that more people held that dear. That family unit and that core, that's going to be with you forever. And to me, and I tell Jared this sometimes, when you're on your deathbed, or you're thinking about your life when you're older, whether or not you raise that amazing corn crop that time, that's really not what you're going to be thinking about. You're going to be thinking about your children and their legacy and how their life is, and whether or not you did a good job. And he's an amazing father, and I love him to pieces, as anybody knows from Twitter. But those are your values. That's what's important, and that's what you're going to be thinking about. You're not going to thinking about, well, I got that one cool promotion that one time and they all said I did a good job. No one cares. I know that sounds harsh, but no,
damn right. That's damn right. They don't even care if you were CEO. Once that part of the conversation's over, they don't care.
Yeah, no one cares. That's not a legacy. It's not a legacy. That family unit, I feel like our society needs to get back to that. And I don't care if that family unit is it really doesn't matter if you are, a gay couple or even, interracial. I don't care about all of that. I care about how you guys are interconnecting with each other. Are you each other's support system? Are you challenging each other to become better?
Are you forging together two different traditions so that something bigger can come together?
Right. And are you building something good? Are you making the world a better place? And like, what are you doing with your life, and challenging each other. I think that those are so important. And I think it's so easy to just kind of like, oh, well, home is a stressful place. And well, yeah, it's stressful. It's the most important job you have. Yeah, it's going to be stressful. And you've got to learn that it's worth it. It's worth it. And that's where you pour your time and energy and heart into. That's what it needs to be poured into, not necessarily making sure a corporation makes millions of dollars, because they don't care. They don't care about you.
I feel like a lot of the truths that you have are simple but very difficult to look at, and I think that requires a certain kind of person to be able to deliver those. If people wanted to stay in touch with you, if they wanted to get a hold of you, you mentioned Twitter a couple times. How would they find you?
Just look for me on Twitter. I think my handle is JulieMac08. I'm pretty sure that's my handle. Every once in a while, I get rid of my Twitter account because I get sick of it. But
that's good. And when it's there, it's there.
It is. I have a tendency to. I don't know. I think social media is a good thing, but I think it can also become toxic. And so if I feel like, again, listening to your inner voice, you and I have talked about this, man, that's your guide, that's your compass. And so if that inner voice is like, you know what, you need to distance yourself from this, you need to get rid of this. So when I hear that, then I'm like, I'm done. I'm done with that. I don't want to do that.
I was going to wrap it up, but you made me think of something. I have a new theory that I call the Dunbar social media theory.
Okay.
So the Dunbar number is the number of connections that you can keep track of in a given community. So how many people can you know, like, oh, they're in a breakup, and oh, this is what's going on with that guy, and this is his wife's getting sick, and her dad, just lost his job. So I think that once you get over the Dunbar number, they say it's about 300 people you could add or subtract depending on who you are, how many social relationships you can track. That once you get over that number and the number of people that you see on social media, you inherently view so much of what they're saying as noise that you let in voices and you care about things that you don't actually care about and you couldn't understand the context of. So it inherently overwhelms you.
Right. Yeah. And it's unhealthy too, because if you are on social media and you're worrying about, like you said, like these things that are silly or affect you in no way, or you would have no way of even helping that person particularly through those issues, or what you said really wouldn't even matter to that person. What are you sacrificing in your real life? And maybe in real life, you would have a friend or even just an acquaintance that you really could help. Where are you putting your love and energy? Would it be better focused in a different place? I tend to think that social media is great, but I also think that personal interaction with someone, even just like at a grocery store, just to check out, just gathering that, taking the 5 minutes to maybe just ask someone how their day is, and then just be genuinely interested and really talk to them. I think that can make a real difference.
Well, Julie McDaniel, this has been a great pleasure, and I love not only the sound of your voice, but what you say. And so I will definitely have you on if you'll come back on again.
Absolutely. You bet. Anytime.
Well, thanks for joining me.
Yes.
Well, that's going to do it for this week's interview with mother and cattle rancher Julie McDaniel. I want to thank her so much for coming on. I really did not prepare her at all for the conversations that we were going to be having. And we were talking about the very fundamental core of life. What is it to be a mother? What is it to raise a child? How do you keep a daughter going on the upright path when you feel like you have some karma to repay? What a wonderful conversation. If you're interested in having deep conversations and exploring the way that other people see the world, how they understand where their place is in it, and when they're asking questions to get feedback and advice about how you've navigated not just communications or technology challenges, but how to think about things out in the world, then you might enjoy the Articulate Ventures Network. I talked about it at the beginning of the podcast, so I'll leave it there, but I just want to say, if you're thinking about it, just come join for a month or so. And it's one of those things that when you check out what's going on and you see what's all available to you, you'll realize this may be the type of community that you've always wanted, but could never get to, could never make the time for, or could never integrate into. And this community is a really interesting one. So even if you've never been the type of person that's joined a community, I'm making this call out now that if you've listened all the way to the end of this podcast, this may be a network for you. So check out the link below. And remember, we've got that 1984 book club on the last Sunday of the month at 7:30. And if you're interested, either join the network or send me a DM on Twitter. Thanks so much, and we'll be back next week with more interviews.